Ohio Senator J.D. Vance and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz went head-to-head on the debate stage last night, not only to pitch themselves to the American people, but also pitch their running mates, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. And most, even the mainstream media, are saying Vance came out on top, looking, quote, polished and confident, with Walz being described as unsteady and rattled.
Kamala Harris has a record, 250,000 more manufacturing jobs just out of the IRA.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
So appreciate that. So if you notice, what Governor Walz just did is he said, first of all, Donald Trump has to listen to the experts. And then when he acknowledged that the experts screwed up, he said, well, Donald Trump didn't do nearly as good of a job as the statistics
that's a
show
gross generalization.
that he did. So what Tim Walz is doing, and I honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here, because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record.
Wow. So for more, let's welcome in behavior and body language expert and former U.S. Army interrogator Greg Hartley, as well as Newsmax host and media relations expert Allison Maloney. Good morning to both of you. Greg, I'll start with you first. So reports out ahead of the debate were saying that Tim Walz was nervous, and that showed right out of the gate. He seemed unsure, a little unsteady. What did you notice from his body language throughout?
Well, when we get nervous, what happens is adrenaline flows into our system and it starts to make us wooden. Our primary focus is fight or flight. We all know that from 8th grade biology. But what you learn is that the person then starts to move more glitchy. You see his movement is more wooden. He threat checks. His head is moving more rapidly. That doesn't look smooth and doesn't look polished. And it's all because of that adrenaline dumping in his system.
Yeah, and Allison, I just want to get your biggest takeaway from last night's debate and the performances of both Vance and Walz.
Yeah, very opposite. So J.D. Vance came off very confident, very polished. He didn't come off as mean as he's been portrayed by some of the media outlets. And you can see how well he does under pressure. He also was very polite. He was authentic. And people who know him say that's who J.D. Vance is. On the flip side, Walz just, again, appeared nervous. He was taking notes. He was fumbling. He just seemed, out of his comfort zone. And actually, one of the media outlets said, yeah, it's because maybe Walz hasn't done as many media interviews. That's why he wasn't prepared, which is crazy because if we look at Kamala Harris and the amount of media interviews she's done, but I think J.D. Vance had a much better performance than Walz.
Greg, this is something that caught my eye this morning. So Politico out with an article, and it says 8 body language tells from the vice presidential debate. And one subline in that says, yes, Vance's beard matters. So I didn't expect to be talking about beards today, but here we are. So in the article, it also goes on to say that women view a beard as being negative, conveying aggression, and is in opposition to feminist ideals. What did you make of that?
Well, that's just bizarre. But one of my partners on the behavior panel always says the last guy who was elected to office was in the 1800s who had a beard. I said, yeah, but beards are wildly popular among men now. So I think you got to take that into account. I think you're projecting way too much into that. I think that people were looking, in my opinion, I asked women I was watching the video with, and they said, look, he comes across as genuine and personable.
Yeah.
And let's also be fair and say that Walz is coming across as Minnesota nice, but not necessarily polite and nice and friendly.
That's a great point. Allison, another part of that article went on to talk about Walz and his facial expressions, especially the wide eyes throughout. I think we noticed that a lot, and they were saying how that conveyed passion. I took it a little differently. How did you take the facial expression?
I took it differently, too. To me, it seemed like, oh, my gosh, she's scared, like a deer in headlights. The eyes were wide. It didn't seem very compassionate or passion. It seemed like I'm stressed out and I need to get my words out. Look, Charlotte, I love a beard. I'm not offended by a beard. I think it's great. Fetterman also had a beard and tattoos. Nobody went and said that they are scared of him and that, women shouldn't like him. But it's okay because he's a Democrat. So
I think the beard works.
Love the beard.
I think he rocked it last night. I thought it was just a fine look. Yeah. All right, Greg, Allison, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.